So I would attempt to prefer an explanation. Sammy did a very fantastic job on Saturday explaining the issues. That because I also happen to be a board member of the central bank, I may be a bit limited in some of the things I can say.
Okay.
And so I would urge that you oblige me on that. But
right.
I'll give as much information as I'm allowed to give to the people so that we can understand. First of all, it's important to appreciate that the $240 million cannot be described as a loss. In fact, I would describe that as an economic profit.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yes, and anybody who understands economics, I want to challenge any economics to come and say that $240 million cannot be described as an economic profit. And why do I say that? It is an economic profit because, and I'll do some analysis to demonstrate why I say that, to show that if you did not have this figure, which is unaudited for that matter, but for the purposes of the discussion, we would assume that the 214 is what it is.
Right.
If you did not have it, Ghana would have lost more than 70 billion cedis.
Okay.
And I will demonstrate why I say so. And so if you have an intervention that is giving you, or that is making you lose $214 million and saving 70 billion, that cannot be a loss. And I am willing and happy to listen to economists and maybe attempt to debate them, even though I'm not an economist. And why do I say so? In 2025, when the NDC government took over, we inherited an economy that was practically in an abyss. There was nothing beautiful about the economy. We were in a baller status, junk status. In fact, international communities and financial institutions have unanimously agreed that Ghana was not a country that had the credibility to borrow. And so nobody was going to borrow us. We must not forget where we came from. We inherited a country where the president, in one of the most beautiful accents then, told us there will be no haircut. And practically everybody was given haircuts in this country. We inherited a country where the city was just dancing on its own, where the economic messiahs, the Professor Gyamfi, the Akoto, whatever, and the solid team, together with the, I think, 50-member committee they formed to arrest the city, could not do anything about it. Inflation at a point in this country was 54%. Remember, when inflation was 54%, the IMF told us that by reason of that, over 800 million people had been pushed down the poverty line again. So this is the country we inherited. Let's not talk about even policy rate. Let's not talk about a number of things. The NPP's record, from inflation to food inflation to policy rate to exchange rate to our gross reserve to the import cover to total public debt, was literally nothing to write home about. In fact, when President Mahama took over, he had to convince the international community. I remember in one of the meetings I sat in with the Afri-Exim Bank, where he had to tell them that we were instituting measures to bring credibility back. So that is the country we inherited. Now, in order to let the citizens feel the impact, it was important that we make a number of policy decisions. And let's not forget that this was the president that held the Economic Forum, where many economists and people in industry, students, academia, and everybody was invited to come and bring, their perspective, because the NDC believed that no one person is a repository of knowledge. Then we had to diagnose what really is the problem. And then again, let's salute the finance minister and the governor of the Bank of Ghana. And so the problem was rightly diagnosed. That which Bawumia could not diagnose, that which the NPP in 8 years could not do, it was done even before the first quarter. 2 solutions were found. That on the side of central government, there has to be fiscal prudence. The central government or the government of Ghana should not spend on irrelevant things like the National Cathedral, like awarding ambulance contracts and millions being paid even before businesses were incorporated. That at all material times, the central government had to be prudent. And more, I can tell you that there is nobody at the office of the president, from the secretary to the president to the last person, who is even entitled to a car, who has an official car, because government in 2025 did not purchase cars for its appointees. As a measure of the fiscal prudence, there were a lot of painstaking decisions that President Mahama had to make, that even internally many people were not happy with him. In fact, some people say that the NDC, we like to have these things of economic buffers. We created the sinking fund. We created the stabilization fund. We created this. And they say that, why do you create all these buffers and leave it for these guys to come and squander? So economic and fiscal prudence was one measure that this government did not joke with. And what is fiscal prudence? It simply means that government was not overspending its revenues. Remember, this was being achieved at the time when we could not go to the international market to borrow, so that we will come and do wache and kinky party. So that is instructive. And then the central bank also says that we have 2 mandates. The first mandate is price stability, to attain relative price stability, and also target inflation. In fact, the target of the central bank when it comes to inflation is 8% plus or minus 2. As we speak, inflation is 6.3. And so the central bank has even attained its mandates and beyond. And so these were the 2 measures that we had to undertake. What did we do? In the past, what the NPP government used to do was that the central bank will buy some portions of gold. And then when they buy some portion of gold, some from the big mining firms, some from the then PMMC, and then they would export as a buffer for our reserve. But while they were doing that, there were other people who were also exporting gold. In fact, it reminds me of Alistair Matthias, who says that he had very close friends in government and mentioned the president. The president is his very close friend, and did indicate that even on an annual basis, they export over 80 million worth of gold. So there was a decision on the part of the NDC government that let's bring GOLDBOD on board, and let's change the object and the modus operandi, and let's do things differently. Let's maximize the use of a natural resource, which is gold, because for well over more than 60-something years, we have used a certain model. It did not work, or that even where it worked, it was not sustainable. And so let's change the modus. And then there was a creation of GOLDBOD. And here too, let me say that Sammy Gyamfi is doing a fantastic job. And his job will not be subject to the feelings and the whims and caprices of people who do not understand it. What you have to measure a man by is not his effort, but the results. And so what are the results of the gold board? Today, I can tell you that for the first time in the history of the Fourth Republic, the central bank reserve is above $13 billion. And this is after we have paid the interest on the loans the MPP recklessly took. For the first time, we have more than 5 months, 7 weeks of imports cover. We've never had it. For the first time in the history of the Fourth Republic, from 1992, this is the achievement of President Mahama. And so, they should not mix up the issue. And if it was that easy, and I ask again, why didn't the economic messiah do it? If it was just about accumulating reserve in the way that they say that they are gold for reserve ought to do it. Because most of their policies were just knee-jerk reactions. You know, they didn't plan, and anytime they were faced with a situation, it was as if they just called themselves into the room and say, what can we do? Then someone dropped something. They were not doing proper analysis and evaluation. And so we in the NDC and the central bank said that no, we ought to diagnose the problem well. With the gold board on board, this is the reserve, over 13 billion. That has never been done. Now, having achieved that, the result of that is that when you sell the gold, by reason of some assaying fees and differences in exchange rate, for purposes of accounting, it is captured differently. So as I speak to you, there are even engagements with the auditors of the central bank on how we can properly capture a new phenomenon that we have created so that we will not do below the budget line reporting and above the budget line reporting. That in itself, again, is a government that is transparent, a government that doesn't hide anything below the line and above the line, laying everything bare to the citizens. The single act of the gold board, which they are so not enthused about, is that it brought this country over $10 billion in reserve. And so that is why you see that anchored on the fiscal discipline is also the gold board inflows that has made the city to appreciate and, to borrow your words now, stabilize. That has to be said. Tomorrow, I want us to do some maths together so that our viewers would, appreciate where we are coming from. Now, when you look at the 2025 budget, the government estimated that if you look at the loans that we owe in Eurobond, interest and other payments, we were going to pay 1.8 billion cedis. Now, at an exchange rate of 15.95, which is what S&P and Fitch and other people had predicted would be the exchange rate by end of year, it means that we are going to pay in cedi terms 29 billion. By reason of this singular act, we are now having to pay 22.8 billion. We have made a savings of 6.2 billion. Rounding the figure up, I don't want to mention everything. So I want you to write that the impact on public debt is 6.2 billion.
Okay.
Now, when it comes to the IPPs, again, because we are complying with the cash waterfall mechanisms, we estimated to pay 1.8 billion. And that at the exchange rate of the 15.95 would have brought us to 30.1 billion. Today, the same figure will give us 23.6 billion. If you do the savings, we are saving over 6.4. So we will do the addition. The first one is 6.2. The second one is 6.4. Now you know that Ghana is largely an import-driven country. And while we hope to build our industries, as we speak today, our imports bill, as was estimated in 2025, was 17.7 billion. At the same exchange rate, we are going to use 287 billion. Today, even at the port, if they were to use the exchange rate of 12, we were going to save 60.8 billion by way of just that. So when you add all these figures in billions, you do the addition and tell me, how much money have we saved by reason of the relative stability and appreciation of this currency? How much money have we saved? That is not it alone. I want viewers to know that from President Kufuor's time to President Mahamat's time, the entire Eurobond market, all those presidents borrowed about 3.75 billion. The NPP alone, within 6 years, before they were booted out of the international market, borrowed 11 billion cedis. More, even if you were to pay 8% on the interest of the 11 billion, how much money would you be paying? How much money would you be paying? You will be paying over God knows how much. But let me not even use that analysis. You realize that earlier I did indicate that Honorable Atu-Forson had paid the interest on the Eurobond, which is $709 million. Take 214, assuming we were to borrow this Eurobond, and this is only the interest for this year. I think in 2 years' time, we have to pay another interest. But let's even assume for the purposes of argument that this 709 million is the only interest we even have to pay on the Eurobond. Take this 709 million from 214 million and give me the figure. Now, give me the total figure. Oh, you didn't do the math with me.
I'm listening to you.
No. I was expecting you to do the math.
Don't worry, I'm listening to you.
I'll do the math.
The public is doing the math, so don't worry.
I'll do the math.
You want to do the math?
Yes.
Okay, give me the figure.
So when you take 214 from 709,
okay,
we have made savings of 495.
Okay.
Why? We didn't go to the Eurobond markets to take 10 billion. By reason of GOLDBOD's operation, we are having to bring in this inflow of the 10 billion. And someone tells you that.
So this 419 is what you mean by the economic gain?
495.
495.
In addition to all the other ones.
60.8, 6.5,
yes. 6.2. And this is even this is not even proper. Figure. This is not even proper. I mean calculation, because for the Eurobond you need to do the proper amortization schedule.
So we'll call it back on
so that if you did the proper amortization schedule, you will see. If you were to compare it with the interest rates of our counterparts, which is other African countries, if they had gone to the market to borrow 10 billion, we would have been paying this interest. Somehow, the NPP says that the policy decision, the single policy decision that has strengthened the currency, that is having an impact on the price of goods, and they are even asking for more. Doratu says that they want water and other things to reduce. They are asking for more. That yes, citizens must begin to feel the impact in everything that they do so that the exchange rate appreciation will be meaningful. They are saying that no, it is so bad that all these savings have been made. It is so bad, but it is so good that we must use 709 to pay interest. That it is so good that when they in NPP incurred losses, when they were buying just less than half of the gold in 2022, the NPP incurred $74 million. In 2023, 2.15 billion. in 2024, which is their highest, 4.84 billion. They are saying that, you know what, even though we did times 10 of this, at a time when we could not attain stability for the city, at a time when we could not make savings on our debt to GDP, at a time when we practically could not help the Ghanaian economy, we did so well. But somehow, you, with all the savings you are making for us, you are not doing well. Where do we say this? And then, after Sammy had explained that the gold board had not made losses, in fact, if you look at the gold board is on its way, I mean, it has not made losses. The gold board is on its way to making surpluses. Then they say that, you know what, then if it's not you, then it is the central bank. Under the NPP, the central bank cumulatively made losses of 81.6 billion cedis from 2017 to 2024.
How much?
81.6 billion cedis.
I see.
From 2017 to, and you know, in the midst of all these, the central bank could not achieve the two objects it had to achieve: price stability and then inflation. You have a central bank that today, inflation is below its target. Inflation is 6.3. On Wednesday or so, they will release the next figure. It would either be a minimal decrease or maybe the same. Relative stability, 11 consecutive months, inflation is on the decline. Policy rates, people were taking personal loans in your government at a rate of 33%. I remember my friend at one bank, he literally chased me for loan, 33%. Today, people are taking personal loans at 12% and 13%. Even that policy rate had reduced from 27% to 18%. If inflation heads down again, the central bank will reduce the policy rate again so we can free space up. And the NPP says what? For all the gains we have made, for all the billions, this single policy, which is being implemented and it's being done better than we did it, let's just talk about loss. Where lies the loss? What would have been the opportunity cost of not engaging in this model that we have? And I say that if you cannot give a man credit, you know, the NPP, they were a bit obsessed with Ato Forson even when he was in opposition. They wanted him incarcerated at all costs. Ato must go to jail. And Ato, because they knew the potential. Could you, and again, my chairman, Dr. Isiama, they wanted these two, it's as if they had the vision. They wanted these two men behind bars at all costs. They knew what they can do to the economy. Can you imagine the monumental achievement? Can you imagine? And you know, in all these discussions, you cannot take away the credibility of the IMF, the World Bank, Fitch, and everybody. The World Bank, the DFIs, and everybody predicted that it would take Ghana more than a decade, more than 10 years to achieve the target. Even for that, they were not giving us these indicators. They were giving us 15 cities and the rest. And in 1 year, one fiscal year, this has been achieved. I want to hear arguments like, we had the men who would do this and do that, and we would not have incurred 214 million, an unaudited figure, but for the purposes of argument.
Okay.
I want to hear arguments like, we did this way. The figures show this contrary. These things they've been doing. Okay. And you could see I saw that happen over the weekend on Newsfile. These things they've been bundling around, the things they've been saying, and it is not enough for you to just say that a loss was made.
Okay.
The thing is that this cannot be described as a loss. This is an economic profit. This is something that has gone to make the lives of many Ghanaians better. This is something that has the potential to even cause us to build on the foundation. And I hear a lot of people saying that what they want is sustainability. I can assure them that the central bank is not sleeping. I can assure them that the finance minister is working. I can assure them that President Mahama himself does not sleep.
Okay.
Every time the conversation has been, how can we sustain this? And so you can understand the MPP more. For 1 year in government, they don't have cash for seats to talk about. For 1 year in government, there is no moving pina to talk about or the boss gate scandal. For 1 year in government, nobody has gone to take somebody's rice to go and share during Salah. For 1 year in government, free SHS people are not eating Moshosho rice. For 1 year in government, the people are practically starved of scandal. And so when they see the figures, and I'm surprised, especially at Kojo Oponkrumah, that, I think he has a bit of economic background and is also a lawyer. When you see such a release from the IMF, you don't go to town and say GOLDBOD has made losses. I'm surprised. We're from that reasoning. But somehow they believe that, you know what, let's keep peddling falsehood. Let's keep saying these things. I saw a post of someone that this generation, when you miss them with lies, they will expose you. And so I want, in concluding, I want to tell the people of Ghana that President Mahama has you at heart.
Okay.
President Mahama recognizes the need to build a nation. In fact, in his New Year message to the people of Ghana, one thing that he said was that he recognized that we have a nation to build. There is no NPP Ghana, there is no CPP Ghana, there is no NDC Ghana, there is one Ghana.
All right.
And he also recognized, he has said it on many platforms, that this is about the last time many young people will have confidence in leadership again. And so he will not fail you, he will not fail you, the central bank will not fail you, the finance minister will not fail you. What we will not listen to are people who just make averments without proof. Are people who don't take their time to read and analyze the issues and just say, oh, this has been done. Oh, if it's not this, you see the propaganda. Bower Rock was for Joyce Bower and their brothers. Now they say it's no longer that. They said, oh, Bower Rock was incorporated sometime in 2025. Now they say that, oh, we thought that was it. They are everywhere.
All right.
The people of Ghana must know that their hope is the NDC, and the NDC will deliver on its mandate to make the lives of people better than we came to meet it.